at the forefront of these changes and challenges. He is going to share some of our insights today, along with outstanding coaches like Coach Fralick and Coach Nightingale. MSU is fortunate to have the best team in place to take on additional changes that are no doubt still coming our way. I have the honor of introducing our moderator and Spartan alum, Speaker of the House, Joe Tate. After high school, Speaker Tate was a player at MSU on our college football team, and he served his senior year as captain and achieved all Big Ten academic honors. He then played 2 years in the NFL before serving in the United States Marine Corps with 2 deployments to Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom. Speaker Tate is currently serving his 3rd term and represents Michigan's 10th House District. Also, he's made history by becoming the first Black Speaker of the House. Speaker Tate also earned a bachelor's degree in public policy and political science at MSU, and he earned both an MBA and master's degree in environmental policy and planning from the other university down the road, which we won't hold it against him. Today, we explore critical issues facing collegiate athletics. I look forward to what I'm sure will be an interesting and enlightening discussion. Please join me in welcoming Speaker Joe Tate.
Please welcome head coach of women's basketball for Michigan State University, Robyn Fralick. Vice President and Director of Athletics for Michigan State University, Alan Haller. Head coach of men's ice hockey for Michigan State University, Adam Nightingale. And to moderate the discussion, please welcome Speaker of the House for the State of Michigan, Joe Tate.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, Kelly, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm a little embarrassed being a Spartan alum. I don't have any green on aside from this side. So please, don't ban me from campus. But really appreciate, Coach Fralick, Alan, Coach Nightingale, for you all being here today. We know just how important athletics is, not only to individuals that play it, their families, but their community and what it means to the fabric of this state. So where I wanted to go first and just start off and just would like all 3 of you to respond to it. I truly feel at the bottom of my heart I wouldn't be Speaker of the House if it weren't for my time as a student athlete, if it wasn't my time playing team sports and being involved in that. For you all, what does athletics mean in your life, for you all personally? And Robyn, I'll turn it over. We'll start with you.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. It's a big one to start with. First of all, thanks so much for joining us today. It's great to see so much green in the room as well. We appreciate you taking the time. What does athletics mean in my life? I mean, I think from when I was really little, it was transformative. I think it's like where you really get a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose as an athlete, as a coach. I think so often in life, being part of a team is so invigorating. I tell our team that all the time. One day you're going to wake up at 6 a.m. on purpose just to run with friends, right? And right now you get to wake up and train with a group that's on the same mission. So I just think there's so many transformative pieces that being an athlete develops in your life. And I think the purpose piece, I know even for me now in coaching, is really powerful, to just wake up and feel really passionate about a group getting better, and waking up and feeling like there's always a new challenge in front of us.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, no, first, thanks for having us. This is a great event and really special for me, growing up in northern Michigan, to be able to come back to Mackinac Island. And, I didn't get a chance to spend a ton of time on the island, but obviously a beautiful spot. And, I'll echo what Robyn said. I mean, I grew up, I had 2 brothers. I was the middle. Both my parents were college athletes. They didn't play hockey, but they had 3 boys that had a passion for hockey, and they knew what it took to be a high-level athlete. And, I think for me, what I fell in love with the sport of hockey is the team side of it. I was never the best player on any of the teams I played on, but just being part of something bigger than yourself. And then I was out of hockey actually for a year when I got done playing. I took a job with a construction company, but that's really what I missed. I still remember I was at a construction site, and sitting in my truck, I'm like, I can't see myself doing this. It was a good job the rest of my life, and I want to get back into, and what I really missed was being part of a team. And I think the responsibility we have as coaches is a very big one, and the opportunity we have with the ages of our guys and girls. Their next step, a lot of them are going to be, we had a kid 2 years after I graduated, and that's scary thinking of myself as a senior in college. We had a kid 2 years later, but it ended up working out. But I mean, I do think what Robyn led with, I think losing yourself in the team, I think that's what I really love about it.
That's great.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Thank you for having us. I appreciate those that organized this event, changing the chandeliers for us, and actually painting the hallway was a nice touch as well. Oh, yeah. So thank you. Wow, athletics. Just about everything that has happened in my life besides, my upbringing from my parents is because of athletics. My time at Michigan State was transformative. I go back to my freshman year. We were playing at the University of Michigan. It was a nighttime game, prime time, and we had a punt block on. Some of you might remember this. I still do. So, and I was off sides. We ended up blocking the punt, running it back for a touchdown, and then I was off sides, so it was called back. And Coach Perlis kind of pulled me over to the sideline, and I thought he was going to scream at me, but I think he understood I was a freshman. I was young. I had a long career ahead of me. He just gave me a hug and said, "Hey, son, just watch the ball." And I kind of take that experience with me in everything that I've done, from being a police officer to bouncing around the NFL. And now my job as the athletic director, it's the best responsibility in the world to be able to be around these young men and women, helping them develop, helping them go through challenges, and helping them, move forward in their life because of their experiences at Michigan State. So I'm very fortunate to have this opportunity.
Yeah, in that sense, a theme of not only working together for a common goal, but also helping others as well, too. So thank you for that. So before I get into this next question, I just want to provide a little bit of context. As many of you all know in the audience, in 2019, the Michigan State Legislature, they passed legislation around name, image, and likeness, so allowing student athletes to benefit from that. What a lot of people in this room don't know is that back in the late 80s in Michigan, Bo Schembechler and George Perlis came to Lansing because there was a problem. There was no legislation around, student athletes receiving money from agents. And this is back in the late 80s. And actually, the legislator at the time that led the charge is actually in this room, and he is an MSU alum and a baseball All-American, and that's Joe Palomera, who is here in the back. So nothing dies in Lansing, by the way. So nearly 30 years later, we came back and we saw a change in the landscape, and we actually got that off the books to allow student athletes to receive, their name, image, and likeness to benefit from that. So with that being said, my question is, we've been talking a lot about these big picture issues in the college athletics landscape. So NIL, the transfer portals, these are issues that have fundamentally changed college athletics. And it seems like every day the rules are changing.
That's right.
As coaches, and this is for Robyn and Adam, how do you evolve to remain current? And how do you utilize specifically the transfer portal, to help you build the best team that you can? And we can start with, if it's okay, start with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is, I get asked all the time that my thoughts on it, and the reality is my thoughts don't matter. I have no control, and there's rules that are set up now, and our job is to follow the rules and try to build the best team that we can, and as far as the NIL piece, we haven't done a ton of it, and that was intentional from building our program. I think every sport's different, but I do think we wanted a solid foundation, and not that isn't important, and now we're getting into it, but I think you got one crack at really having a solid, and we didn't want we didn't want kids to come. We had kids come on visits that brought it up, and we said, hey, if we showed you all this and it's not enough, then this is probably not the spot for you. And we lost some kids, but now we know that we need to. The reality of it, but just think that initial, setting the foundation. And as far as the transfer portal, I mean, same thing. I go both sides. I see both sides of it. Where, I don't think it's fair that a coach can leave and go to a different school just like this, and we're a player.
Yeah, please don't go.
Yeah. But you also want them. I mean, the reality is. Everyone talks about growth and adversity. No one wants to go through it, and so much growth can happen to fight through things. And I fear that a little bit, right? Where you gotta, maybe I'm on the 4th line or I'm on the 5th line, I'm in and out of the lineup, and you just need to get better, and that's okay. It's okay to have to improve, and the grass isn't always greener on the other side, So when we took, I feel fortunate when Alan had offered me the job. I got the job a day after the portal closed. So we had this group of players that had, the program, and this isn't, but they had lost 16 games in a row and got pillaged in the portal, so lost all their guys. And what the best thing that was for our coaching staff is this is your group of players and you got to help them get better. And I think that helped us get a little traction of a little street credit and that's what it's about, right? Is you gotta show that you can help players get better. And then the next year though, it was really hard, and that's not for everyone. We had some guys decide they're gonna go in the portal, and I did tell myself coming into this, and I told our staff, we're not going to coach afraid of the portal. Coach how we believe that kids need to be coached. Hold them accountable. Hold them to the highest standard. If we're not going to beg anyone to come to Michigan State, we're never going to do that. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, we got a lot of players that want to come here right now, and that really helped us. And we were able to get some of the top players. I think the top 4 players last year in the portal ended up choosing Michigan State, and so now we had, I think, 6 kids this year. Now we'll only have 2. So I think long term, we really want to develop from within, but using it to fill some holes and continue to build your team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you make some great points, Adam. I think even in the last 2 years, it's changed dramatically. I even think this offseason compared to last offseason looks pretty different. And just a week ago, we were out at the Big Ten meetings, and Alan was out there, and it changed again. So when we were all meeting, so it kind of stay tuned. But some interesting parts of it. So the portal and NIL sort of happened at the same time, but they're really different. But their connection matters because those two have worked in a lot of ways interchangeably. I love what Adam shared. Of course, we have thoughts on it, but no one cares. So our job is to figure it out. Like I always think as a coach, if you're in coaching, you've got to be a problem solver. And I think you can be creative. I don't think it's good or bad. I just think it is. And you've got to figure out what that means for your team and how that fits into your program. The portal's interesting because the portal's quite equitable. I always say a good player can leave as easily as a good player can come. And we all know about it, right? We all have access to the same portal. We all can see what's going on. And then NIL has been, I think, much, much trickier to navigate because as we know, when anytime something gets opened like that, people can get really creative, especially in other leagues, to find sort of ways to maximize it. And now we're finding more legislation coming down where that, there's some pieces of that are going to be changing in the next year or so too. But I agree what Adam says. We want to coach. We're really clear about what we're about and our core values. And I think our core values, like you either want it or you don't. And I think it can filter what people, I think there's great reasons why people leave. I think there's terrible reasons why people leave. But a lot of that also goes to what's important to a kid and what's important to a family. And I think with the portal, the way that we've used it is we really feel strategic about it. Like there's some real needs that we might know we have. And that can be, there's pieces that you can find with that. We have 4 players coming from the portal this year, 4 transfers, and all of them I knew. I had a previous relationship where, they'd come to my camps when I was the head coach at Bowling Green, so I think there's parts of it that have really helped our game. I think that there's parts of it that have really hurt our game, but what I will say is that when I'm at practice, or when I'm on the sidelines in a game, or when I'm in a locker room, nothing's changed. Right. It's the sweetest spot, right? When you're at practice with kids and helping them get better, that feels exactly the same, which is, I think, a big part of for us as coaches, that's a part that we still can really resonate with.
Big time.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really great point. Great points on both. So this question is for Alan. So we talked about NIL, we talked about transfer portal, and we know there's no secret to NIL opportunities in terms of recruiting as well as retaining, but we know that that's not the only thing. But we know that MSU has also invested in supporting all student athletes through brand development, financial education, decision making. MSU was selected as the best institutional program at the 2023 NIL Summit. Can you talk and unpack a little bit more just about your strategy, your holistic approach to NIL at Michigan State?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back a little bit. You're being really humble, Joe. Joe helped sponsor the first NIL legislation in the state of Michigan to get NIL going in the state of Michigan.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how
I was waiting for you to mention that.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
Just to add to what Robyn and Adam were talking about, I'm a fan of NIL. I think the core nature of what it is intended for is a good thing. At Michigan State, we really are looking at three words: empower, educate, and innovate. Empower our student athletes to take advantage of this landscape, what's going on, but then making sure that they're using their brand in a way that does not hurt them in the future. Educate, understanding tax laws and contracts and all of the things that are going on nationally and keeping them up to date on what's happening in the national landscape. And then the innovate piece is the new, everything that's happening new, making sure we're on the front edge of what's going on. And when NIL first started, it was student athletes going somewhere to sign an autograph and getting paid for that. And then it evolved into social media posts. And for us, thanks for really, really good partners. MSU Federal Credit Union is one. CEO April Klobes started a program called Women of Sparta. It first started as a program just for our women basketball student athletes. And just now this year, she's expanded that to all of our women student athletes. And it's more than just payment. What April has done and what we've partnered with doing is it's internships, it's financial literacy, it's understanding contracts. And then also the career development piece is really important in terms of being involved with industry leaders and being able to grow in that way. And so there's a lot going on, and maybe we'll talk about that later, but I'm an advocate for it. I think it's a good thing. There's a lot of money that flows through college athletics, and I think it's the right time for student athletes to participate in some of the revenue.
Yeah. And even to build off of that, I know that there's been a lot of talk about lawsuits involving the NCAA.
Really?
And yeah, it's a surprise. But, and I don't want you to have to comment directly on this, but what is your thinking just in terms of how you manage, because there are tectonic shifts, at least from the outside looking in. How do you, and this is a question for all of you, in this ever increasing kind of pace, how are you able to kind of monitor that? How are you able to manage that in terms of what comes down the line?
Yeah. Well, we're all friends, so I can be very transparent, right? There's no media out here. I think you all read, there was a settlement here recently. It still has to go through the court systems and to be approved, later down this year. But it is a good step. The revenue sharing piece that's happening in college athletics is a good reset for us. I am not an advocate of this is the end of college athletics. I don't believe that. I think this is a new era of college athletics. It's an opportunity for our student athletes to participate in the revenue piece. But then also, there is a reset that's going to happen when it comes to a lot of the NIL activity that's happening that is impacting the coach's ability to recruit, to retain. I think this puts parameters around things and allows us to put a system in place. The governance structure has to be talked about. How are we going to observe, I don't want to say penalize, but observe schools that are doing it the right way, but then also taking advantage of the rules. And again, I'm an advocate. We've got to figure out this system moving forward. But at the end of the day, we're going to share parts of our revenue with student athletes, but at Michigan State, we're going to still look at how do we create an environment of excellence, opportunity, and equity. And that's what we're going to do moving forward.
Well, thank you for that. And so switching gears just a little bit, and Robyn, you talked about this. I mean, fundamentally, you know, as a coach, both you and Adam, I mean, it's about, you know, creating, you know, a team atmosphere, creating, I know, better citizens, you know, once they leave Michigan State, winning championships. I think we're roughly the same age. So the last time that I played, I was at Michigan State, was almost a little over 20 years ago. And you talked about it a little bit. You know, what has, for you, fundamentally stayed the same in terms of motivating student athletes, getting everybody pointed in the same direction, versus, you know, now as a coach versus a student athlete? I mean, has it really changed, or do the core principles really stay the same?
I mean, for me, I don't really believe it has changed that much. I think it's about relationships, and we talk as a staff. I mean, I'm a big John Wooden fan, and I think if you look at how he treated his players, I mean, I think that's what players are craving. So now, if you went back in those days, he was kind of an outlier how he coached. It wasn't a dictator, and but I think that's really how people want to be treated. So, you know, I tell parents, you know, when they come in that you're going to coach your son like I want my sons to be coached. I want my sons to be held accountable. I want them to have a standard. I want, if they need a kick in the butt, give them a kick in the butt. If they need an arm around them, put an arm around them. And I think that's just how people want to be treated. So for me, I don't think that side of it's changed. Where I do think I can speak to hockey, and just where it has is parent involvement and the commitment it takes to get to being a high-level player. And I'm sure basketball is the same. With it's so much invested into trying to achieve their goals. Like, our guys are so committed. I mean, it's unbelievable, and how dialed in. I think that's changed big time on how dialed they are in on their diet. You know, I've told this story of we swept Wisconsin, #1 team in the country, first time since 1974, 50 years since we've done that. I was doing our press conference, and
That's sweet.
Yeah, but up above is where the weight room is. I was doing the press conference.
That's also when they won the Big Ten.
No,
correct?
that was early in the. That was.
Oh, early. Okay,
yeah.
I was gonna say.
But I hear bang, 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 and this was Saturday night, so we won Friday, Saturday, and I got done with the press conference. I went upstairs, and every one of our guys was lifting, and that wasn't something we can't set that. And so I just think the commitment level, if you get the right players, is at a totally different level. They do want to be great, and that's where again, diet, and fortunately the way we're supported, the way we can take care of our guys, they really thrive in that environment. So for me, I don't think it's changed as far as how people want to be treated. I do think players are way more dedicated than maybe they were in the past.
Yeah, I think recruiting has changed. I think recruiting has changed, and player retention is a little bit different too, because there are so many more opportunities. I know I played a long time ago, and at that time you didn't even hear about transfers. And if you did, it was pretty taboo. So I think those two elements look different across. That's pretty consistent, the recruiting, and then just kids with more opportunities. But as I shared, the sweet spots haven't changed, like practice, conversations with kids, like challenges of navigating being a student athlete. And you know, one of our goals always as a staff is when our kids graduate, when they leave Michigan State, they're ready to launch. And that could be a pro career, that could be a professional career, that could be, you know, more school. But I want them to always want to come back and feel like they were part of something, and Michigan State is home. But I don't want them to feel like this is only who they are, right? I want them to feel like this really transformed them into what they're ready for in that next step. So the really good things haven't changed, but athletics have. And I think recruiting, I know at least for me in women's basketball, it does look different. And in a lot of ways, it's a great thing. Women's basketball is more visible than ever. There are 24 million people who watch the national championship game. It's so awesome. And I think of, I thought of this when you were sharing, Alan. I think of Caitlin Clark. You know, she was at Iowa. She was in the Big Ten. She was a phenomenon. And she should benefit from NIL, right? I mean, she was probably last year the most popular college athlete in the country, male or female. And so as a women's coach, that's really cool, right? I have a 7-year-old daughter who's in the driveway pretending to shoot logo threes, even though she can't make layups. Like, so, you know, I'm like, I don't want to kill the enthusiasm, but maybe we should start with layups. Her name's Claire. We call her Claire Clark now, you know, so there's always the good parts of it. I think sometimes we can get wrangled up into what's wrong, but, you know, that's our job to try to make sure we're still finding the good pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's great. I know we're going to be running short on time.
I know,
here
we're on the clock here.
I know there's a countdown. But before I jump into audience questions, I have one more question, Alan, just for you. And I think a lot of people, you know, they see, you know, the product on the field, you know, the work that the coaches, the athletic department, you know, everything that's a culmination, but they don't see, obviously, as coaches, they don't see the practice component on it or the administrative component of it. And a lot of people probably don't know that MSU's athletic department is self-sustaining. And that's a testament to your leadership and your team as well. So, you know, what are, you know, the opportunities that you see as leading an athletic department that is self-sustaining for the future of not only of the program, but for current and future student athletes?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Self-sustaining means the budget. It's correct. We don't receive any money from the university. We spend what athletics makes. But let me be clear. All the money we spend is the university's money. Athletics is a part of the university, so it's not just athletics money, it's the university's money. I had to throw that in there. My boss's boss is here. And our vice president for finance is here, so it's all the university's money. But having said that, it's really important that we're fiscally responsible, that, you know, everything that, you know, our treasure is where our heart is. And so how we spend our money identifies our priorities. And that's really what we talk about all the time in athletics. And we're not spending just to spend. We're spending to fuel our student athletes environment and also create a culture with our staff where they can be all they can be. And so we make sure that we're not a burden on the university. Whatever we pay for, whatever we purchase, whatever we spend money on doesn't add any additional restraints for the students. Having said that, again, there's challenges coming. We've got to figure out how to pay for the revenue share piece of it and still be who we are. We have to still make sure that we are competing nationally, but also in the Big Ten. There's 18 schools in the Big Ten, including Michigan State now. That budget goes from $105 million all the way to well over $200 million. Michigan State is somewhere in the middle. We have to make sure we're spending that money in a way that identifies us as Spartans, but also we remain competitive, because the three of us are really competitive and we want to still win.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Well, we'll turn it over to any questions with the few minutes that we have for the audience. I will just want to say, keep in mind, like, let's keep the questions, you know, short and sweet, so we have enough time as well too. And you know, as we go along in this conference, we know that it's bridging the future together. So, you know, as you have your questions, let's make sure that, you know, we're obviously being mindful of our guests here on the panel. So, any questions?
I have two questions. So, first, Coach Fralick, did Cam Clark get that 3 up in time?
Unfortunately, yes.
It was? All right.
Barely. I actually, when it happened, I was like, there was a small part of me that was very hopeful that it was not off in time, but it was like, yeah, it was,
all right.
yeah.
And then, Mr. Holler, you know, MSU has taken back the swimming and diving from being a varsity sport. Does the change in NIL, do you think it'll, not just at MSU, but across campuses, constrict different programs that are offered at different universities? Is that something you think will happen as revenue share becomes more of a priority for maybe the main sports?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm not an advocate of cutting sports, so I'll make sure I'll say that from the top. But then also, I think what we've done in the time that we've been in leadership at Michigan State is, again, going back to our budget, we've used our resources in a way that allows all of our teams, all of our student athletes to be successful. That's important to us, that's important to Michigan State, and that's going to continue to be something that we're going to do moving forward. Things are changing. The way we're going to use our budget will change in the near future. However, we're still going to be equity, opportunity, and excellence.
Good afternoon. I just want to say this will be my first time really cheering for Michigan State. You guys have a good guy from River Rouge named Nick Marsh, so congratulations on that. But
There you go.
I do want just get your opinions on how do you feel that NIL is going to affect the high school level as it flows from the top down, because it seems like, you know, from Michigan it's not allowing that, but how do you feel that that's going to affect the high school level?
Why'd you look at Joe when you said Michigan's not allowed? You know, it already is. It has an impact, although you can't pay recruits, but it has an impact on recruiting. It has an impact on how high school students are looking at where they're going to spend the next 4 years of their time. And so I think the more we can educate and be involved in those types of decision making, it is important. And I don't think it's good for high school student athletes probably at this time to participate in NIL. The reason for that is part of NIL is the revenue that's flowing through college athletics. It calls for it at this time, and that's not happening in the high school ranks. So keeping that purely high school and amateur, I think, is a good thing moving forward. But you know, it's starting to creep in there already. I mean, these coaches are having to have conversations, you know, about how they're using NIL in their programs, and it's making an impact on their decisions.
Hi, I'm Mavita Burris with Avalon Healing Center. And my question is, you talked about education. So when you're talking about NIL, a lot of the students are coming from families who don't have an education in finance. What are you all doing to ensure that they understand how to handle their image, their name, their image, and their likeness appropriately? My cousin is Gabe Bubba Brown, number 44, and that is something I've been talking to him about ensuring that his name, image, and likeness is appropriately handled, but handling that money appropriately.
I can speak to that. I know with our team, we do education piece, so there's actually a lawyer and a financial advisor that comes in and communicates with our team, and the lawyer is really well versed in NIL, so he offers them a lot of opportunities from a contract perspective and from an opportunity perspective, because NIL it's social media. I mean, a huge part of it is social media and a presence which they have a lot of control over. And then the financial piece, I think, is really important, because withholding taxes, and there's a lot of things I learned too late. You know, I wish I would have had the lesson a little sooner too. But that is important, and that is something that we actually we make a session every year with our team for that in the summertime. And then they're both really available also by phone for our team to be able to communicate with them.
Yeah, and we had the same. We actually have a lawyer on staff as a former player, so we have that resource right there. And then we had a donor come forward. He was looking to how can I help, and he's a financial advisor, and that's, you know, you can give money, but you can also give your time and resources. And our guys have done multiple Zooms with them. I just got an email from them last week. These guys have really engaged with them. Not just the NIL piece, but I think just the reality of your next step of life, how to manage your finances.
Question for Mr. Haller. The last week's settlement, the $2.8 billion with the NCAA for part of the lawsuit for past athletes that didn't get NIL money, how is that going to impact the way you do business going forward?
It's still to be determined. I'm not avoiding the question. It's, you know, this all happened within the last half week. Many of the details, about the settlement still have not come out yet. And, my team is currently, we've been working on this for the last 6-7 months. We've been trying to predict, Alice Bresky works for us. She's in the back. She works in compliance. We've been meeting on this for the past 6 months, and it hasn't been a surprise for us. That's still to be determined. That's probably the best answer, and I'm not trying to escape the answer. It's just a lot of the details haven't come out yet. It's a 10-year process for the back damages. What are the payments over 10 years? There's escalators in there at 4% per year. What does that look like? So there's a lot still to be determined.
I think we have time for one more.
I'm just wondering if any of the panelists think that student athletes' course schedules will go down or be reduced or even eliminated to let them focus exclusively on athletics, and when they're done doing that.
I'm not at Michigan State. I'll say this to that question. We've won 6 Big Ten titles this year. We've had a number of all Big Ten and all American players. We've won tournaments. We had 9 of our teams qualify for the NCAA tournament, which is a high for MSU athletics. I can go on and on. But with that, we broke a GPA record for our department. 3.374 is our cumulative GPA for all of our programs. And also, for the first time in athletics history, all 23 of our sports had a 3.0 or higher cumulative GPA average. So we're doing all of this with NIL, with winning championships, and we're going to continue to do that.
That's a good segue. So we just want to thank you all, Coach Fralick, Coach Nightingale, Alan. Thank you so much for your time, and if the audience could give them a round of applause.
Thank you.